Stories are important to me. I'm a playwright, I'm an actor, I'm a poet, I'm a human being. I've, uh, I'm a person who would now identify as agnostic slash atheist, so stories are very important to me. They're part of what I've spent the past 3.5 years studying, the stories of business theaters, stories of Greek theater, like the plays, and then the actual, like, his story, whatever. But stories are the ways, or what we're made of. We're just made of stories, and I think amongst the five of us, add two on for Molly and Adrian, add another on, for my lady, and we are made of stories. That is what we are made of, and memories of stories. And I found this weekend, I'm in two polar opposite sides of sort of how powerful stories can be. I saw Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa for the first time this weekend. Pam wanted to introduce it to me. We have a list of movies we want to watch, and we're fairly diligent about actually getting around to doing it. And it was very moving, and it was awesome. It was a great way to spend 3.5 hours over 2 nights. And the story of those seven samurai putting up a last stand for a bunch of peasants, and the way it was shot, and the way the story was told, and each character's sort of trajectory really connected with me in so much as, this is an awesome, like, movie about, war and that period, but it's also my grandfather, who passed away in March, is a lover of classic movies, specifically westerns. Now, where Seven Samurai connects to my grandfather, is my grandfather watched a lot of Turner Classic Movies. I know he's seen The Magnificent Seven, which is the Western remake of Seven Samurai. And I remember, even though I don't have a lot of connection to my grandfather, like in terms of like we never had a whole lot of conversations, I can always remember him sitting down to watch Turner Classic Movies. And a Kurosawa movie would be something that would pop up on Turner Classic Movies, and so I know in like my heart that at least on a plot level, like we've seen this story. I've finally seen the story that my grandfather probably loved. I'm just guessing. I can ask somebody like, "Hey, did he like Magnificent Seven?" I'm gonna donuts to dimes. Yeah, he probably did. Which makes me wonder if he saw Seven Samurai, and if he liked it, and if he liked subtitled movies, or if he would have appreciated, or if he would have. But that movie opened up some other doorway into remembering my grandfather and the story of my grandfather and who he is and what he represented before he passed. On the opposite end, Sunday morning, my grandmother passed away. My grandmother Eleanor, my mom's mom. It was unexpected. And as an adult who has large gaps in his memory from things, I am having the most difficult time remembering the stories of my grandmother. It's frustrating. It's upsetting. It's deeply upsetting. I'm driving to buy a suit jacket today because I have to go be a pallbearer for it on Wednesday. And I can't posit a positive memory of my grandmother and I together from my childhood. I know there's a positive feeling, there's love, there's flashes of like me spending the night at grandma's house, but it's harder to connect to something specific. It's like grasping at the ghost of some story that I'm desperately trying to grab. All my last impressions of my grandmother are not the most positive. She wasn't, I wouldn't say Alzheimer's, but she was getting a little batty and forgetful, and it was frustrating. And I remember being frustrating around Christmas time because she was very diligent about her church attendance, and that's fine, that's great, and like there's a part of me that deeply respects it, but on the other hand, it's like we're trying to have, a Christmas get together with all the family, and she's like, no, I'm leaving the middle of this to go to Mass, and I'm not, you just have to deal with it, and that was always sort of frustrating. So I mean, that is the story, that is the narrative of my grandmother I have in my head right now. When all I want right now is some fuller story than what my memory is providing me. All I can remember, all I can say with any clarity is my grandmother was very smart. Smart like my mother, and my grand and the treasure side is where my intellect and my wit come from. And I remember that she had cookies in a cookie jar. I was always freely giving it. Always had Coke and Pepsi, one of the two. Never like Mountain Dew or anything like that. But none of the cheap stuff. It was always Coke or Pepsi. That she let me play on her treadmill and just like drop toys on it and let it fly against a wall. And then she would let me draw at her stationery desk, and that I'm pretty sure, so long as I was living in Kirksville and not in college, I was I was her IT guy for a computer. She was very adventurous about trying to learn the computer and managing the storage and the memory of it all. Stories are important because whether you believe in an afterlife or not, it's so long as you're above ground, physically, mentally conscious, it is the things that let others be immortal to us. Let us stay around forever. And it was a terrifying moment in my car today when I could not think of that positive story. But doing this helped. I hope you're well.